Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, where we discuss all the news in the world of basketball. My name is Ben.
And I'm Pauline.
Back here on a Monday, a great weekend. Pauline, I know you watched some basketball as did I, but you watched some prep basketball. I'm kind of jelly.
It was a lot of fun. Went to high school.
I love watching it. It's so much more entertaining to me. I don't know why.
But no, yeah, it was good. It was really good. It was a lot of fun. Saw the... women's,
the
but
California
girls.
State Championships.
Yeah, yes, for Division I.
This weekend at the Golden One Center here.
It was loud in there. It was packed. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the LA, well, not L, they're on all LA, but I'll just say SoCal. They really, really show up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's always here in SAC, but always show up.
But then I'll give them this whole thing. I know this is like something that, I don't know. But, like, for example, on the boys' side, it was Bishop Montgomery and Wood Creek from here in Sacramento. And I'll give them, in Wood Creek's favor, some of these private schools get a little bit better of a pick from the crop.
Yeah,
as far as the private school.
Of course they do.
They're
school,
Wood Creek held it down.
Yeah, I will say one thing. I do know a lot about them because I follow this a lot. They don't have any transfers. So they're all from their own school. It's not like they brought in just, random guys.
Yeah. That's some places,
Even in high school with these private schools, it's basically recruiting.
No, definitely.
The Finley Preps of the world and the Oak Hills. They bring in kids from all over the place to move to, like, Nevada or what's Oak Hill, like West Virginia or Virginia?
They
literally play high school basketball there. So, I mean, Bishop Montgomery did not have any of that, though. So I kind of have to give them credit. Have a couple of 4-star recruits. I know one of them's going to Oregon State. So I forget his name, but they were a good team. And they were the better team.
They pulled out, like, I did know too. I was thinking this is gonna be a tough battle for the guys because, like, their short guys are like 6'4".
Yeah,
on the team.
It literally looks like a college team.
Their short guys are 6'4".
It's not like your center's like 6'5". It's like he's like 6'8".
No, yes. So
I mean, it's just like a college team.
Exactly. So I was like, all right, they got their work cut out for it. Wood Creek does have that one kid that's like 6'11".
Yeah, Jordan Brown. He's a junior national recruit. I think he's like top 5 by most people.
So I mean, we did have some leverage, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed myself.
That's what's important. And I watched a lot of the NCAA Elite 8, which we'll get into now. So actually, we're going to look at the Elite 8 matchups. We have our Final Four set for next Saturday in Phoenix, Arizona. Pauline's thinking about going. I'm not sure if she is or not, but
I talked about this on the show last week when I forgot. I think it was Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. I don't know how it slipped my mind that they were playing games in San Jose. Yeah. It slipped my mind. So
we
on
had Gonzaga
Thursday
and Xavier in our
I was
Elite 8.
Literally thinking of just going right after the show, and I said it on the show. I was like, I think I might just leave here and go. But then my problem was that I would have had to call out from work for my other job. But this weekend I'm off.
There you go.
So I don't have to call off.
You just got to get a plane ticket and a ticket.
I have
some
friends that are going to the Final Four, so I can just be like, help me, I'm poor, and just
tag along. I'm with that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, I think it still would be a lot of fun to go. Like I was telling Ben in between shows, like I can just stay with one of my friends, but then I don't necessarily have to watch the game in the stadium, even though that would be amazing. But at this point, tickets will be ridiculous.
As they always are.
Yeah, but, it's fun. I could just go to, like, a bar nearby or, like, a restaurant somewhere nearby where there's other fans like me just wanting to be in that atmosphere, and I can just scream my head off there.
Sounds like a plan. You know what I mean?
I'm contemplating. I'm contemplating.
This ticket was still like about it.
$600 round trip, though. But
I mean, that's a pretty penny.
That's a pretty penny.
It's because it's so close. You're only like 5 days away. You know what I mean? So it's like maybe a month ago.
Maybe a month.
$600 would have been like 2.
No, definitely.
And then you would have been like, hey, let's do it.
And that drive, it's like Ben was saying, like 12 hours.
Yeah, from Sacramento, it's like 12, 13 hours nonstop. So it's pretty tough.
Have to recruit a friend.
Call it Uber.
Well,
be a pretty expensive Uber.
I was gonna be like, you might as well just buy the ticket.
Might as well buy a flight ticket. But anyways, let's get into the Elite Eights here. So we had the Saturday matchups and the Sunday matchups. We'll look at them in depth. Number 1, Gonzaga taking on number 11, Xavier, after they pulled off that upset over number 2, Arizona, and Gonzaga held on to defeat number 4, West Virginia on Thursday. Gonzaga literally was in control the whole way out here against Xavier. They went 83-59, up by 10 at the half. Second half, they kind of pulled away.
Right.
Great performance by senior leaders in Nigel Williams-Goss and Shimmick Karnowski. Goss had 23 points, 8 rebounds in the game, and they really just controlled it all the way out. Gonzaga's really been impressing me this tournament with their defense. Held Xavier at 35% shooting. They only made 2 of 16 from 3 as well, and really limited the Musketeers and everything they could do. Xavier's been getting great production all tournament long from Trayvon Blewett, but he kind of blew it in this game because he only had 10 points and he shot 3 of 14. But again, credit to the Gonzaga defense.
No, yeah. If you're holding a team to only 35%, that's definitely going to help you. Because even if you're not on your A game, if you're shooting more than that, then you're fine.
And they did the same thing to West Virginia. They held them to 25% in that game that came down to the wire, which we won by 3. So Gonzaga moves on to their first ever Final Four in school history. They finally get it done after everyone doubted them, myself included. Now we'll see if they got 2 more in them, because that's what it's going to take to win their first ever championship in school history. And on the other side, on Saturday, we had number 3, Oregon, taking on the number 1 seed, Kansas. And my bracket, Pauline, you can literally just throw it in the dumpster because it's busted. I didn't pick any Final Four
Not
teams.
one.
Literally none of them. None. Zip. Nada. Nilch. Nothing. Because Oregon defeats number 1 Kansas 74-60. Oregon were in control the whole way out. Again, up by 11 at the half. Kind of coasted their way to victory all the way throughout. Another great performance from the guard, Tyler Dorsey. He's been, honestly, to me, the most impressive player of this tournament. 27 points, 6 of 10 from 3. Jordan Bell fills in greatly. He had 8 blocks in the game to go along with 11 points and 13 rebounds. Just literally that force inside. Then you have a guy like Dylan Brooks, who's been by far the Ducks' best player all year long. He had 17 points. They just kind of overmatched Kansas with those 3 guys in particular. And you look at the Kansas side, they kind of struggled. I mean, Frank Mason III had 21 points, but he shot 8 of 20. Josh Jackson couldn't really get anything going, only had 10 points. I mean, Devontae Graham really, really disappointed. Didn't even make a 3. He was 0 of 6 after he had made so many in the game against Michigan State and against
Purdue. He could not find it.
But he just couldn't really get it going. And Oregon advances to their first Final Four in literally like 80 years, since 1934. Yeah. So, I mean, 83 if you want to get particular. But
I'm taking Oregon.
Really?
I'm taking Oregon.
Well, we'll have to see what Oregon match up with. I mean, we already know, but we'll have to get into the games. So those were the games from Saturday.
Yeah, that's from Saturday.
From yesterday, really, we kind of had 2 disappointing games on Saturday, 2 kind of blowouts. But yesterday was fantastic. South Carolina, again, in the second half, they get it done. They were down 7 at the half against their SEC foe, Florida. But the big second half, they outscored the Gators by 14, and they win by 7, 77-70. They did it yet again. They did it against Duke with a 61-point second half. Come back here against Florida. They beat Baylor on Friday. I mean, they're just riding an emotional wave right now.
Right.
Can it be stopped or not? We'll have to wait and see until next Saturday. They're going to play Gonzaga. But they've been everybody's Cinderella and darling story. The number 7 seed out of the East region is going into the Final Four. It's absolutely fantastic. And when you have a guy like Sindarius Thornwell who can control the game and dominate the game because of the ability that he has to score, like he did yesterday with 26 points, they can kind of like, they have what it takes to get it done because they have that one guy that can take over games. And that's what Thornwell does for South Carolina. Great fiery coach, Frank Martin. They could be up by 40, and he looks like he's like a military general, like yelling at the like, troops, you know what I mean?
Right.
But he's kind of like that big-time leader that they need. His Kansas State teams are like that. Now his South Carolina teams are like that. And they are in the Final Four for the first time in school history. And as I mentioned, they'll be taking on number 1 Gonzaga.
Hey.
The winner of that will be in the championship game on Monday. So you have South Carolina and you have Gonzaga. Obviously, Gonzaga, they have all the pressure on them.
Sure.
First ever trip into the Final Four. The number 1 seed, only lost 1 game all year long to BYU. Then you have you have the Gamecocks of South Carolina, who are really just playing on house money. You know what I mean? First ever time here. It was the first ever time in the Elite Eight, even. And they're a 7 seed. No one really expects them to win.
They're not,
But I feel like that could really help them. Their back's literally against the door, and they're not
You've gotten to this point, why not?
It's almost like that's when you expect a team the least when they're the most dangerous. You know what I mean? This could be South Carolina in that instance, but they will have, obviously, now 5 days to think about it because they're going to play Gonzaga on Saturday. And then our other matchup yesterday in the Elite Eight was fantastic. It was a doozy. We had number 1 at North Carolina in the South against number 2 Kentucky. The top 2 seeds, the only one we had there. And North Carolina, in due part to Luke May's game-winning shot with 0.3 of a second left, beat Kentucky 75-73. Malik Monk hit a 3, an absolutely crazy 3 with 7 seconds left to tie the game at 73. North Carolina doesn't call any timeouts to go all the way down the court, and Luke May, a former walk-on.
Yes, how cool.
I know,
He's
right?
so cool.
Well, I'm a Kentucky fan, so like kind of bittersweet. But
sure.
For Luke May, how cool is that?
Yeah.
How about that
What
moment?
a story. Yeah,
That
what
moment.
a story.
He doesn't even have a scholarship there. He walks on.
Yes.
Sets a career high in 17 points and hits the game winner to take his team to their 2nd consecutive Final Four. It doesn't get any better than that.
No, that's
of course,
sweet.
you win the championship with a shot.
But as far as personal best,
Right, at this point.
That's awesome.
It doesn't get any better than that for Luke May. So congrats to North Carolina. This game was really, really good all the way through. Kentucky, I feel like they kind of let it get away at the end there. They're up by 5 with a few minutes left. North Carolina goes on a run. Kentucky just really couldn't score at one point there at the end of the game. And then they tied it, and then, hey, the kid made a shot at the end that just won them the game. You can't really get on them for that, but they had their shot. They were up by 5 with a couple minutes left and kind of let it get away a little bit. De'Aaron Fox kind of struggled after that big game he had on Friday against UCLA and Lonzo Ball. He had 39. He only had 13 yesterday. He only shot 5 of 14. Malik Monk as well, only 4 of 10 from the floor, 12 points. He kind of struggled as well. But North Carolina advanced to their 2nd consecutive Final Four, and they're going to take on Oregon, Pauline. I know from talking to you on the sports show, you really think Oregon have a chance to get it done. Why is that?
Because I want Oregon. You want
the West Coast team?
I want a West Coast team.
Okay. Gonzaga too. They're from Washington.
Sure, but I think with Gonzaga, I haven't been cheering for them. Like, I'll just be honest, I haven't been. They've been proving me wrong.
I don't have a horse in the field anymore, so I want to see South Carolina win because they're the underdog, the 7th seed.
Okay.
But North Carolina's the best team. I mean,
and I think that's why I'm not picking North Carolina, just because it's kind of like expected. Which, I mean, it's fine. Like, I'm not going to hate on them for that. They've been working for it. They're ranked number 1. They've earned that right. But exactly.
I'm going to take North Carolina against Gonzaga, and I'll take North Carolina. But I feel like the North Carolina and Oregon game has a shot to be
that's going to be a fun game. Yeah, that might overshadow depending on how it goes.
With how good Tyler Dorsey has been playing, he's probably going to match up against Joel Berry for North Carolina. That'll be a great matchup. You have Justin Jackson against Dylan Brooks at the small forward position. And then inside you have Kennedy Meeks and you have Jordan Bell. So I think that will be a fantastic. I think this is really an even matchup. I think the depth of North Carolina was what will get it done for them. But that against Oregon is going to be fantastic. And then you have South Carolina, like I said, playing on house money against Gonzaga, who have all the pressure on them. So it's going to be a great Final Four. from Phoenix, Arizona on Saturday, and then, of course, championship game on Monday. So a week from today, we'll obviously recap the Final Four and then preview the national title game, but we'll have to save that because it's time for our first break. After the break, we're going to talk about the NBA. On Friday, Devin Booker scored probably going to be his career high ever, 70 points.
Yes.
70 points, 7-0. Yes. He scored 3 less points than Kentucky did yesterday in the whole game. He scored 70 points in one game against the Celtics.
Yep.
Although I'm not the biggest fan of it, and I'll tell you why. And then we'll also talk about the rest of the games in the NBA from yesterday. We had a matchup between James Harden and Russell Westbrook, the Thunder versus the Rockets, and it proved to me why James Harden is clearly the MVP. And we'll talk about all that and the other games here at the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Coming up next.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back into the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I mentioned on Friday, Devin Booker, career high 70 points against the Celtics. Shot 21 of 40, 24 of 26 from the free throw line. He also had 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Think about if he didn't pass the ball at all. So 6 assists. Say they're all 2-pointers. Okay?
Right.
That's 82 points. He could have done one-up Kobe.
Yeah. Hey.
But, I mean, he didn't.
He can't one-up Kobe. But, I mean, he had the potential.
There's a shot. I mean, if he did not pass the ball.
Now he's thinking about it. Now he's thinking about what he could have did differently.
The guy took 40 shots, okay? The whole rest of the team took a combined 46. So he took just about half the shots. But he scored 70. He's only 20 years old. And you know what? It's a great accomplishment. They still lost 130 to 120 against the Celtics, though. I might say that. But you know what, Pauline? I'm not a big fan of this. Congrats to Booker. He's a Kentucky guy. He's my boy. I like him. He's a fantastic player, averaging about 21 points. He's going to be a stud, one of the better shooting guards already. Give him a couple of years. I think he'll be an all-star. Okay? So let me say that for one.
Okay.
2. And 2, I'm not that big of a fan of this for a couple of reasons. Number 1, the Suns are tanking. I talked about it on Friday with Anthony, and then here at the basketball show I talked about it on Friday, because they started the youngest starting 5 in the history of the NBA on Thursday, and it's the same starting 5 from last night. They're averaging 21 years and 14 days. It's younger than some teams in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Their starting 5 in the NBA is younger than some teams in the NCAA tournament, okay? So they're tanking, they're trying to lose games, and I'm not a big fan of that. I hate that, okay? Because the whole draft lottery thing, the more losses you get, the better balls you have. I hate it. Okay?
That part.
So I have a problem with that. Number 1. Here's the other problem I have: 70 points, great accomplishment, but it gets taken away a little bit from me because they were fouling the Celtics on purpose at the end of the game. They were calling timeouts to stop the clock to get Devin Booker the ball. It's like, hey, we're already down. We want to lose.
Right.
Let's just get Devin the ball to see how many he can score now.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
They were down by 17 going to the fourth quarter. He had a 51-point second half, so he lit it up in the second half.
Right.
Okay? But it's like, hey, we already lost the game. Let's just give Devin the ball now. This is going to be great. Like, I mean, great accomplishment. Don't get me wrong, 70, but I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, and I think that, no, I get what you're saying. But at the same time, might as well.
Okay, what's next? Like, we're just going to go out there. Okay, we're going to lose on purpose. We're going to have Devin take 60 shots and he'll get 100 points.
It is kind of stinky. It is.
I'm not a big fan of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
70 points, great. But I feel like it's kind of like one of those things you have to put an asterisk next to. Like, it wasn't natural. Like, Kobe's 81. That was natural.
It wasn't. It was just because, right.
You know what I mean? And the other part I'll say about this was the last thing after the game. And Jay Crowder of the Celtics, who had 13 points in the victory, I felt like my boy was a little salty. And here's why I say that, okay? of course, after the game, the Suns have nothing to play for. They're happy that Devin got 70 points. So they kind of copied the Wilt Chamberlain photo,
right,
where he has 100 in the paper, but this is 70 in the paper. They're all posing around him, put it on Instagram.
Yeah.
And then Jay Crowder
so fun, so excited for him.
Fires back like, I've never seen so many people so excited about an L.
Yeah,
like
and
I'm
like,
a loss because they lost the game.
I'm like, boo, shut up.
It's like yeah, I
shut
get
up.
it. I get it, but it's like,
did you have to say that?
Are you kind of mad because you're not going to score?
Like, how
70?
unnecessary was that?
Like, kind of salty there. Throw a little shade. You know, I wasn't the biggest fan of that. I was like, hey, man, like, don't be mad because you're not going to do that
ever. Like
ever.
Truly. Even if your squad did try to like make that the goal of your day.
If anyone's doing it, it's Isaiah Thomas. And I mean, he didn't get literally half of what Devin Booker scored. He had 34, so he was pretty close. He had 34 on Friday in the victory. So the Celtics, good win there. And then let's get to the action from yesterday. Okay, so let's start off first with the matchup of the probable number 1 and number 2 most voted MVP vote getters at the end of the season. That's the Rockets with James Harden and the Thunder with Russ Westbrook. Okay, yesterday proves another example why Russell Westbrook, to me, is not the MVP. He's going to probably average a triple-double, so I'd probably give it to him because of that.
Yes. Right.
It looks like he may or may not still even get it. And to me, the MVP is Harden. And yesterday proved another reason why. The Rockets win 137-125. The game wasn't really that close. It was a lot bigger of a margin. Thunder kind of came back with a big fourth quarter there. They outscored them by 13. The Rockets had 113 points after 3 quarters. Teams don't get that in a game, let alone 3 quarters. Westbrook had a triple-double. Don't get me wrong, great. 39, 13 assists, and 11 rebounds.
Right, but your argument is kind of valid.
He shoots 9 threes like he always does, makes 3 of them. He needs to kind of just shoot 2.
But he fails, but you miss all the shots you don't take.
Yeah, and when it comes to shooting threes, he still misses them because he's not a shooter.
But some of them, 1, 2, or 3, are going to fall.
He's not a shooter. He needs to stop shooting them. He could
That's
literally
9 points right there.
He gets to the basket whenever he wants, and he resorts to shooting threes. So just kind of stop, Russ. I'm not a big fan of that. He has a triple-double,
right?
But they still lost the game. James Harden did not have a triple-double, but had a great game, 22 points and 12 assists to go along with 5 boards. Played a lot more, I guess you can say, in control. Plus or minus of 11. Russ had a minus 14. So the Rockets are 3-1 this year against the Thunder. So Harden has the head-to-head matchup 3-1 over Russ. The team is better, 51-22 as opposed to 41-31.
Yeah, I'll give that to them.
And you kind of knew this was going to happen with Westbrook. He's shooting at a lower percentage as well. To me, this proves why Harden's MVP. Another example.
And it is going to be difficult because, at the rate that Russell is going, he will average a triple-double at the end of the season. But it could still go in Harden's favor because of how his team is doing as a whole.
It's possible.
So
to me, the true MVP is LeBron. But of course, with how the Cavs are playing,
it's the same thing. It's going against Braun because of how his squad is doing.
Yeah, they're not doing too well. They're 5-7 in March. They literally have tied with the Celtics for the top seed in the East, and I don't think that's really going to matter too much to the Cavs and LeBron. But how they're sort of playing just as of late, not too well, and that's going against LeBron's the MVP, but he's not going to win it, of course. The best player doesn't always win the award. So
right.
I'll say that. But yesterday just proved to me why the Rockets and James Harden should win the MVP over Russ of the Thunder. But, we'll have to see what happens at the end of the season. It's going to be interesting. Russell Westbrook's going to average a triple-double.
Yeah, I'm interested to see.
He'll be the second player ever to do that, Oscar Robertson, of course, being the other. And Oscar Robertson that year finished 3rd in the MVP voting. So he obviously didn't win the MVP.
Yeah,
so what do you value a triple-double at?
Yeah, what more?
You may not value it that high because he didn't win it. Russell Westbrook may not win the award after averaging it. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to find out. But nevertheless, yesterday in the NBA, it was not just those 2 guys. We had other games as well. Don't let the March Madness fool you. There were NBA games. The Hornets beat the Suns. Devin Booker did not have 70 points.
No, but,
Hey, you can't do it every game.
Hey, if that was a repeat...
Hey, then we would have known that they're definitely trying to get it to him.
Yeah.
Because That would have been something else. But the Hornets win 120-106. Kemba Walker, 31 points, 9 rebounds in that matchup. And hey, how about the Nets, Pauline, playing pretty well as of late? They've won.
That wasn't a laugh. That was more at a laugh at your voice tone, not at the fact that they've
won 3 straight.
Hey. I'll
now
give it to
16
them.
and 57. I mean, hey, not the greatest there, but they win 107-92 over the Atlanta Hawks. Jeremy Lin, 19 points, 8 rebounds in the game. How about your Kings, Pauline?
How about them?
18-point fourth quarter comeback.
Tearing up Clip City in Clip City.
Yes, 98-97. Willie Cauley-Stein.
Now.
Willie Cauley-Stein hits the game winner with 1.8 seconds left.
98-97. Woo woo.
Hey, I mean, they're on the comeback trail. Yeah. The Bulls defeat the Bucks 109-94. The Pacers defeated the Sixers 107-94. The Celtics beat the Heat 112-108 behind Isaiah Thomas 30 points.
Right.
The Warriors beat the Grizzlies 106-94. Klay Thompson had 31 in that game. The Pelicans beat the Nuggets 115-90. Anthony Davis 31 points and 15 rebounds.
I expected nothing less from you, Anthony.
Yeah, I
love
much.
Anthony.
Gotta love him. He's a great player.
Love him.
Just wish he would stay healthy.
Yeah.
The Trailblazers defeat the Lakers at 97-81. Damian Lillard 22 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists as well in that matchup. You look at the NBA calendar for tonight, March 27th. You have the Magic in Toronto take on the Raptors. The Knicks will host the Pistons. Big matchup here tonight. The Spurs hosting the Cavaliers. Do you think the Cavs can take it tonight?
If they can, no. I'm putting it with the Spurs.
She's like, well, I mean, no.
I'm putting it with the Spurs.
They're done. I don't see any way possible.
It's the Spurs.
Yeah. Unless we have some surprise resting, which seems to happen on big games like this, national televised games, then I'll give the Spurs the edge. The Mavericks will be hosting Russell Westbrook and those Thunder. The Kings will be at home at the Golden One and take on the Grizzlies. And the Jazz will be at home taking on the Pelicans. We'll take our last break of the show. After the break, we're going to talk about news in basketball. Patrick Beverley, not a fan of resting players. We'll see if Pauline likes it or not. And Indiana have a new head coach, and it's not who I thought it would be. All that after the break at the GSMC Basketball Podcast.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome back into the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Pauline.
Yep.
James Harden came out and said he was not a fan of resting players. Every time he's healthy, he's going to play. And
right.
His teammate kind of backed him up here. Patrick Beverley of the Rockets, he ripped the NBA's trend of resting players for preventative maintenance. Just taking a day off. He calls it a disgrace to the association. He said, quote, I think that's bull. I think that's bull. Fill in the blank. After their victory yesterday, I think it's a disgrace to the league, and I think the fans deserve better. I could care less about coaches asking players to rest or not. I think he means I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Because if he could care less, then there's something he cares less about more than this. So, I mean, you went to college, Patrick. I would assume you'd be better than that. But anyways,
it's a misquote. I blame the typist.
He says it's up to you to play or not, and if you don't, you're disrespecting the game. And I don't believe in disrespecting the game because there was a time where I wasn't playing in the NBA, and I was just trying to get here. So me resting, I feel like, is disrespecting me, disrespecting the name on the front of the jersey, and disrespecting the name on the back of the jersey. And Pauline, you feel sentimental.
I'm it's making me feel some type of way right now. I'm getting a little teary, especially when you look at it from that perspective. There was a time, because I get what he's saying, was let's not forget what the sacrifice we had to get here.
Everyone's dreamed to get here. Now
we're taking it for granted. We're I'll play if I feel like it. So looking at it from this perspective and from a personal insight of it, I do kind of feel I'm that's actually pretty true. And with all things, sometimes with anything, once we get there, we get comfortable. So then we start whatever. But then in this particular case, he's let's not forget when we were little kids looking up to guys like us, type of a thing where we had to work so hard to get here. Now that we're here, That
I
really
loved
did.
it.
I
Not,
like
not
that.
necessarily from that regard, but I loved it from the stance that there's another guy coming out and saying, hey, let's not do this. I realize
Right.
Beverly's not a star.
Okay.
But-
yeah, but, you know.
From that stance of, because I'd say it's kind of gaining momentum as far as the league is trying to do something now.
We talked about this.
And
it will
guys
get
have
popular.
come out and said, like, hey, I don't really care, like LeBron James.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Popovich said, like, oh, kind of deal with it. Like, you know, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of in that stance, like, hey, let's do something about this. For me, the answer is shortening the season, but that's not really going to happen. So we'll see what happens.
Or
But another guy
putting,
coming out.
In the contract, you can take this amount off.
Yeah, like, okay, in your contract, you have 3 rest games. Like,
Yeah.
And you have to pick them.
And blackout days. Like,
Right,
I guess,
so,
like,
I mean-
you know, like, you can't do it against the big name team.
That I've heard a lot of theories. Number one, this is what I heard a theory, and it would obviously cancel it out, is that you have the playoffs seeded accordingly to record. But then when you're playing that team, whoever had the head-to-head matchup victories throughout the season is the home team for that matchup. So let's say you had
Oh, okay.
the Cavs and the Warriors in the finals.
Right.
And obviously, it's 1-1 in the season series. Let's just say, for instance, the Cavs won 2-1. Mm-hmm. The Warriors have a better record, so you'd think they'd host the NBA Finals and have the home court advantage. But the Cavs beat them 2-1 in the regular season. So then the Cavs have that home court advantage. So if you do it that way,
I see.
you
It
have
kinda
these
puts more
guys
on the
taking
line.
games off against the Sacramento Kings of the world. Sorry, Pauline.
It's fine. It's
And
okay.
not the Spurs or the Clippers
Yeah.
or the Celtics, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if you do it that way, then you don't have this issue against
Right.
big name teams and national
Right.
televised
I can work
games.
with that. Yeah.
That's not going to happen either. But I mean, that's just one solution that someone brought up. So that could be a case, but it's not going to happen. But I do like Beverly coming out and saying I'm not resting. So, and then that gets us to the last bit of news for today's show. Indiana have a new head basketball
Yep.
coach, and as I said, it's not the guy I thought it would be. We have Archie Miller. He's the new head coach coming over from Dayton to Indiana. He is going to have about a 7-year deal, which is honestly pretty long. I was surprised.
I was thinking that's a pretty long stretch.
Surprised he got that many years. It's about $3.5 million per season. In 6 seasons with Dayton, Miller was 139-63, and he reached the NCAA tournament the last 4 years. So he's, of course, replacing Tom Crean, who got fired on March 16th after 9 years. So Indiana's a big-time coaching job. It's an elite program. And hopefully Miller can turn them around because they've kind of been up and down. So they're great for 1 year under Crean, and then they're terrible. And then they're great, and then they're terrible. So hopefully Miller can really turn them around and get them really consistent. But I was surprised it was not going to be Steve Alford, who coaches
Right.
at UCLA. It made perfect sense. He's from
Close
there.
this chapter, yeah.
He went to school there in
Yep.
Indiana. He
Right.
was on the verge of getting fired by UCLA last year. He literally had a bonus taken away from him
Yeah.
because they had a terrible year. He was on the verge of getting fired, but obviously he bounced it back this year with a Sweet 16 appearance. He's going to lose a lot of players from UCLA.
Yep.
Lonzo Ball literally got a drink of water and said, I'm leaving to the
I don't even
league
think
right
he
after the game.
swallowed the last. He was like, I'm done. I'm out.
Like, literally, the final horn goes off, and he's like, I'm going to the
It
NBA.
was already-
in that
yeah.
game against Kentucky on Friday. He's probably going to lose TJ Leaf, who's going to be a lottery pick. I mean, guys do come back when they probably shouldn't, but I think Leaf will probably go to the NBA. You have Lonzo Ball going to the NBA. You have LiAngelo Ball coming in, who's not nearly as good as Lonzo. Not going to make an impact at all. Sorry, no disrespect, but I'm just not a big fan of him. I don't think he's that good of a player. You have Bryce Alford, his son, who's graduating, so he's leaving as well. You have Isaac Hamilton, who's a senior, who's leaving. So you're losing a lot of players. Mm-hmm. Your son's already leaving, so you're not coaching him anymore. It made perfect sense, but he's
Right.
obviously staying put at UCLA. So,
Okay.
hey, we'll see what happens. Anyways, that's going to be the end of the show. My name is Ben.
I'm Pauline.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll be in the studio tomorrow, and have a good day here at the GSMC Basketball Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gssmedia.com. GSMCpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.